Today on Homeworthy, we're stepping into the world of historic homes where the past and present meet. First, we'll visit a 1740s farmhouse in Virginia that has been lovingly transformed into a family home. Next, we'll explore a 16th century farmhouse in England, complete with original floors and beams. Finally, we'll tour a stunning row home nestled in Washington, D.C.'s historic Capitol Hill neighborhood. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Mary Catherine Butterworth.
And I'm Joel Butterworth.
And welcome to our home in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Come on in.
I'm Joel Butterworth. I'm a dentist.
And I'm Mary Catherine Butterworth, and I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4.
We are in historic Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is 50 miles south of our capital, D.C. The city of Fredericksburg was very influential during the Civil War, and the spot where we currently sit is in Stafford, South Stafford, so a little town called Falmouth, which is just over the Rappahannock River. And our property actually was an artillery stage for the Union Army during the Civil War. So I had always wanted to live on land, and Mary Catherine was a little indifferent about that. So I had showed her a couple places in town, and we had gone and looked. And the actual story is we came and looked at the house, and she looked at me and said, "No way, we're not doing it. It's too much work. It's gonna need X amount of money. There's no way we can financially do it." And we were under contract that night on the house. I had always wanted to raise a family on land. I'm really into gardening, chickens, livestock. So I just envisioned this as a beautiful place to raise our family, and it didn't take long to get Mary Catherine on board with that. And then she was able to add her touch to the house.
Yeah, once I realized the opportunity we had here in the space and what we could do with everything, I jumped on board really quick, and it's been an amazing project to work on.
Welcome to the entry hall. This is the first space you would see when you enter the house. It is a colonial center hall style of a home. So you have this big hallway with doors on both sides. That is the original front of the house, but throughout the time it's been changed to the back door. But what's amazing about it is you can open both doors. We're perched up on a hill, and then you get a beautiful breeze through the hallway. The colonial center hall is symmetrical on both sides, so you have the same amount of square footage upstairs and downstairs on both sides of the hallway. Since then, there's been additions to the house, but when you looked at a colonial center hall photo from the 1800s, it basically just looked like a square, and it was all focused around a center hallway. So to me, this is the most prominent feature of the house. All the molding is original. We have the dental molding up top. We have the chair molding down below, and at one point there was picture molding where you would hang pictures instead of putting nails into the sheetrock. I think the most interesting part about the house is the stairwell, to save space, was actually circular. So it's a circular stairwell that goes up to the second floor, and the reason that they did that was to save space. The other cool part about our entryway is this painting was a wedding present from Mary Catherine to me, and it has kind of bounced around our home. So I like that it's one of the first things that you see when you come into the house. And obviously this massive mirror from Indonesia is another cool feature.
So a couple of my favorite features that we have in the center hall here is this light fixture. I used to have a design store a few years ago, and this actually hung in the store. And when we moved here, I felt that it just fit perfectly in this space because the ceiling heights are amazing in here. And this hallway is so uniquely wide that we were able to accommodate larger design pieces, larger pieces of art. We have this amazing Willie Gould planter that I found at market that I fell in love with, and I feel like it really anchors the space. And a couple large pieces of art that we have on the wall here. This is a painter, I believe his name is Sam Ward, out of Savannah, and these are 2 of his pieces that I picked up at market as well. So all of the flooring in the home, aside from the kitchen, is original to the home. So as I had mentioned before, the house was built around 1740. So it does have a lot of like grooves in it and scratches, and I just love the way that it's aged over time. And another thing that we did to the home that I feel like feels very time period is all of the doorways. We actually arched them. When we originally bought the house, the doorways were super low. People weren't quite as tall back then, and so we worked with a carpenter who created this sort of custom molding, and we opened up every single doorway in the home just to make it feel a little bit more grand.
When Mary Catherine first mentioned that to our contractor, he almost quit.
But we found a fantastic carpenter. He did an amazing job, and we all felt that it looks very original to the home and not something that was an afterthought. All right, so now we'll take you into our dining room. All right, so welcome to our dining room. Obviously, when we first started renovating the house, we wanted this to be more of a traditional dining room. And we have 4 small children, and so it almost never gets used as a formal dining room, but we have actually sort of converted it into an office and art room. So Joel takes a lot of his work calls in here. I sit in here a lot with the kids and do puzzles, and we color and we paint. And we've really filled this room with like all of my most favorite things. I absolutely love art, and I love ceramics and pottery and little stones and things. And so over the years, all of those things that I've collected, we've just kind of scattered them throughout the room. And it's just a really special room to me. I really love just the feel in here and the way this chandelier is at night. It's very moody, and it's my happy place.
I would say my favorite part of this room is this painting back here. I think with the plant, it just really fits the wall. This is Jamie Chase. He's an artist, I believe, out of New Mexico. And this was the first piece that we bought when Mary Catherine opened her design store. I remember it was literally the first dollar we spent was on this painting, and we had people offer to buy it when it was hanging in the store, and
I couldn't part with it.
Couldn't part with it. The other thing I like is to collect books that have any history of the home. So I have all these books on Fredericksburg, Battle of Fredericksburg, South Stafford, and just they all tell a different history of the house. And one of the coolest things I have is the actual original insurance from the house from 1765, I believe, and how much it was insured for in the property. So it's just cool I love collecting little history of the house. This glass head here was another great find.
Yeah, we found it from an art dealer, and they knew that it came from Canada at some point, and we did a lot of digging to try and figure out who made this, and we ended up realizing on the bottom, which we thought was just like a scribble or a scratch, was actually a signature from the artist, and this was done like in the 50s, I believe. And we ended up like tracing over the actual signature, and it took, I don't know, a couple days, weeks, and we were able to find out the artist. But this is, it's all glass, and it's quite heavy, but she's a great little addition on our table.
And of course, a room in this house would not be complete without a fireplace. We have many of them. They are all wood burning. We have not converted any of them, and they actually can all do a fire. We really only burn in the kitchen, but we could do a fire in pretty much every room in this house. And this art on the mantle is by your very own talented Mary Catherine here. So she also has a little artistic side to her, as you can see based on the design of the house.
So Joel and I both went to college at Charleston. He was 2 years older than me, but we didn't actually start dating until after we both had graduated. He was in dental school, and I was living in Charleston after I had graduated. He was down there for a summer with friends. We ended up on the same kickball team, and the rest is history. We moved to Oregon together for his residency, and then we came back to Fredericksburg, Virginia for his work. He is a dentist and he took over his mom's practice, and we have been here for about 7 years.
She's being modest. She caught a ball, a diving catch in the outfield, our first game of kickball, and that's what really sold me.
And a little bit about my background. In January of 2020, I signed a lease on a space in town to open a design store. What fantastic timing with the pandemic. But it was wonderful. I had it for almost 2 years, and I was able to travel around to different markets and collect art and interiors and a lot of beautiful things. I also do flower arrangements, and so one of the big things that I offered at my shop was custom arrangements. And living here on this property, I feel very lucky because we have a lot of woods around us, and Joel has planted some amazing gardens, so I'm actually able to do a lot of fresh cut arrangements here. And I now have a lot of the items from the store in the home, which is really special to me. And I do hope once the kiddos get a little bit older to open another store.
So we have 4 kids. Our youngest is 4 weeks old, and he was actually born in one of our cars, which was a great story, and now he has a first car for life. But we have a 5-year-old daughter, 4-year-old son, 2-year-old daughter, and 4-week-old boy. So boy, girl. And we couldn't be happier. It is insane chaos right now. I tell everybody that asks how it is that if they've ever watched Chopped on TV, it's like being in the Chopped kitchen 24/7 from the second your eyes open until the second they close. But I don't think we would trade it for anything. We also have 4 dogs, we have chickens, we have cats, you name it, we got it. And it takes a lot to make everything work, and I don't think I could do it with anybody else.
All right, we're gonna go from the dining room into the bar. Originally, the house, this would have been a butler's pantry that would have been closed off. So when they were entertaining, everything would have been done in here. All the food would have been brought out to the dining room or the library. But this was actually a really tiny little doorway here. And because we arched all of the doorways throughout the house, we wanted it to stay cohesive. So we actually arched all through here and this other arch here just to open it up so that the bar really flowed into the dining room. And we kept kind of the original footprint of it. We just updated the cabinets and added some Brazilian soapstone. And then we had the carpenter who did all of our archways built these great shelves for us, and we have all of our beloved glasses that we sort of have collected in a lot of different places here, and the kids do their homework here and play. And
yeah, I would say this is a desk mainly for the kids. We had envisioned it as a place where we would sit down and work, but with the flow of the house, we can't get any work done there. So that's just where we put the kids to do homework and color. No judgment on the alcohol here, but we do like to have a aperitif almost nightly.
And we entertain a lot, so our families are here with us a lot, and we gather at our house a lot with friends just because we have so much space for all the kiddos to run around. And I would say this is like the main thoroughfare of our house because it goes from like the bedrooms and the entryway through the kitchen, where of course we live because we have 4 children.
My cocktail of choice changes seasonally, I would say. I get really hot on one thing and then the next day I'm on to something else. Currently, I'm really into a Campari soda. Before that, it was a gin martini with a twist. Before that, it was a Negroni. It changes daily. But when I get on one, I beat it hard for a few weeks and then I'm on to the next.
I would say my cocktail of choice, I love an Aperol Spritz pretty much any time of year. My favorite wine is Rioja, so we have a little wine cooler here that we always have stocked. All right, let's go into the kitchen.
Okay, the kitchen is where we spend 99% of our time. We both really like to cook, we bake. We're trying to teach the kids to do the same, and I'd say most of our time is spent right here around this beautiful island that Mary designed. Like she said earlier, this is all soapstone, which is really cool because we can beat it up as much as we want, and having the kids, it does scratch, but it kind of is wearing in a way that like looks like the kitchen is used, which I really appreciate. I remember when we first got the soapstone, everyone was like, be really careful, it's so soft. And somebody like dragged a sheet pan across right here, like the day we moved in, and I was like, no! And it's now I love it. Like the more scratches, the more chips in the stone, like the cooler it is to me, because I want a kitchen like that looks worn. But most of these veggies we grow. We have a bunch of peppers, still getting a lot of peppers. We have tomatoes, our chickens, we have a dozen eggs a day, which is nice.
So another really great thing about the soapstone, although it does scratch, if you keep it oiled pretty regularly with mineral oil, a lot of the surface scratches actually, it like fills them in and it disappears. So it has worn really beautifully, but it is also functional, and this particular soapstone is really unique because traditionally they tend to be like a lighter or darker gray, and this actually is a green Brazilian soapstone with really incredible cream colored veining in it. And when we found, there were like 2 slabs, we found them and we just kind of knew it would fit perfectly with the kitchen.
The range and stove we spent a lot of time looking at. We knew obviously that we wanted gas, so we had natural gas plumbed to the house. But we wanted something that looked classic as well, and I think that these features in this oven, it's an Ilve, so it's an Italian brand, and I think it really is what we wanted. We were kind of on a budget when it came to picking out kitchen appliances, because that was the last thing that we ended up doing, and all the arch doorways took up all of our budget, so we had to go with a little bit more affordable range, and I think that this one is amazing for its price. The other thing I always wanted in a kitchen was a pot filler. The other cool thing that our contractor did was plastered our vent hood, and I think this is very unique because you don't see it that often. Most people just put up the prefab ones right on the wall, and I think this is a very unique feature to the kitchen.
And one thing that I really wanted in the kitchen, I wanted it to feel very open. I didn't want to have any upper cabinets. We do have a really large pantry that we're able to house all of our glasses and plates and everything in. So I wanted the space to feel light. I wanted to be able to feature art. So we did away with any upper cabinets that were here. We added some lighting. And then, like every other room, I have, all of my beloved ceramics and pots and just different things that I've collected from different places I absolutely adore. We have some art in the kitchen, which I think is unique because I don't feel like you always see art in the kitchen. And we do have a wood-burning fireplace. We tend to start fires in October, November, and we're able to have a fire all the way through March, April, even May. We tried to keep the original footprint of this kitchen. This was added onto the home in 1900, so this is the most recent addition to the house. So the kitchen, it was quite dark and heavy. It was wood everywhere, so we took down the upper cabinets. This area here was actually all really dark, heavy wooden cabinets. We made them, this is now our pantry. We keep all of our plates, dishes, some gardening things in there. So these have really, they have provided us a lot of storage so that we don't have to have so much in the kitchen. The original format of the kitchen, it was a big L shape here, and I wanted there to be more of a natural flow when you walk through the side door. So we took that out and added an island, which, especially if you have kids, when you entertain a lot, a lot of people naturally gravitate towards the island. And then there were very heavy cabinets that were built up all along this area, and there was just a tiny doorway to the butler's pantry. So we blew that all out, arched this so that there's a much better flow from the kitchen into the rest of the home.
This is our little breakfast nook where we eat every meal. It is getting quite small for the size of the family that we have, and gonna need to either get a bigger table or add some chairs. But we spent a lot of time here, spent a lot of time at the island, and then we did put a little TV in here. We're not big TV watchers, but I do love to watch golf and sports. So Sunday afternoons, we have the TV on while we're cooking, eating. And this is a really cool mirror that Mary Catherine found. It is African porcupine, actually. So I think that's a little unique piece that we have in here.
So this piece of art, this was an artist that I actually had in my shop. His name is Tomaso Fatovich. He is out of Miami, and I love the way all of the colors in this piece really tie into everything we have going on in the kitchen. And I also love large scale art, so it couldn't be more perfect for this wall. So this piece of art here is an artist, Sidney King, who is originally from Boston, but he moved to Bowling Green, Virginia, pretty early on in his career, and that's actually where Joel grew up. So it's in Caroline County, so it's about 30 minutes from here. And Sidney King did a lot of landscape pieces in the Caroline County area, but he's actually pretty famous for all of his Civil War paintings. He has some really incredible oil paintings of different battles, and we actually picked this up at a local antique store. And again, I just think the colors just go so beautifully with this kitchen.
And I'm an avid duck hunter, so this piece to me specifically speaks. And when the fire's going under here, the orange and the marsh grass and everything, just like to stand here and stare at it.
And now we are going to head over into the living room.
Welcome to the living room. This room we actually don't spend much time in. Our daughter likes to sit in here and watch TV occasionally, but again, another beautiful fireplace with the mantles all done by hand. The molding in this part of the house, this is all dental molding up top. It was in really bad shape when we bought the house, and our contractor was adamant about putting every little piece back together by hand. You can actually buy this stuff in sheets, and the thing that we love about our contractor is he said, no, we're gonna hire a carpenter and we're gonna build it back to the way it was. So all of this molding up top, especially on this wall, there was a carpenter in here putting these little tiny pieces in one at a time with a little spacer. And I can't imagine how crazy he was after he did all that, because it just seems like very mundane work, but that's the way that things were done. And you can tell, like, on this mantle too, like all of this is just hand carved, and they just don't do stuff like that anymore. In typical Mary Catherine fashion, we have an enormous lamp as well, because she likes things grand. We have a very large marble table here that I actually had to put a joist underneath in the cellar because the table weighs 700 pounds, and it seemed like the floor was going to cave in when they put the table in here. So this is actually held up from the bottom.
I'll mention that this would have been back in the 1800s, this would have been like the entertaining room, because this is really the only other space in the house. They used the dining room just really for eating, so this is where they would have met. This would have been, I guess, traditionally more like a library. And we get really incredible light through here, and we arch the doorways in here. And I will say my favorite little detail is this original Greek key around the molding. And it really was pretty spectacular to watch the carpenter have to come in here and individually nail in each one of these pieces. And it just makes you really appreciate all of the detail that really went into these homes when they were originally built. So I will say this bench is really fantastic. I got it from a dealer in Canada, and it is actually African springbok. And it's really, the colors in it are fantastic, and our kids actually love to lay on it. And because it's springbok, it's really durable. So anything that spills on it, you can wipe right off. We have really tried to furnish our home with things that are that can wear very well with sticky little fingers running around. And I will say another set of chairs that I love, I found these at the Tobacco Factory in Asheville, North Carolina, which I know was decimated in the hurricane, which is terrible. It was a really fantastic like vintage antique market. But we found them there a few years ago, and they've traveled with us to a couple different homes, and we've moved them around into different rooms to see, where we like them. But they're really cool, kind of modern, and all this leather is really fantastic. I would say my overall style is really a mix of a lot of different things. I absolutely love antique and vintage pieces, and I think they pair so beautifully with modern pieces and traditional pieces. And I think that what I've tried to do in this home is keep the integrity of the older home in sort of a European style and add in our flair of some avant-garde pieces and some things that are a little bit modern, but trying to keep it really exciting and fresh, but also stay true to this really beautiful historic home.
Now we'll take you upstairs to show you the primary bedroom. Welcome to the bedroom. My favorite part of this room is the exposed beams. These are actually part of the structure of the house, so these are structural. And what's cool about them is this is wood. This is 300, 400-year-old wood. And you can see some of the staining from all the handmade nails. But what's really neat is almost all of the structure of the house and the main part is all mortise and tenon. So nothing is held together by anything except a bunch of joints. If you go in the attic, there's a king truss up there, which is massive. I mean, 3 times the size of this, and all the beams coming off of it are all mortise and tenon. It's just really neat how they handcrafted homes. But there was a hallway right here, a wall, so when we blew the wall down and exposed this, we were like, oh my gosh, we have to keep this in the bedroom. And I think it's cool because it kind of like separates the bedroom a little bit. Like we have a little sitting area right there, and then kind of leads us into the main bedroom. Okay, and we love our plants, obviously. So we have 2 massive monsteras in here, which seem to love the light. There's one in that back corner, and then this one here, another beautiful fireplace as well. The trickiest part about renovating this room was actually trying to figure out how we were gonna make the bathroom large enough to fit a shower and a tub. So we had to steal some space from the bedroom and had to get really creative on how we fit everything into the room, but I think it turned out very nicely.
Okay, we can walk through here into the master bath. One thing that we had to figure out when, putting the layout in here was how we were able to accommodate a shower, a tub, sinks without it feeling too tight. This was a really small space, and I think the contractor did a really great job fitting everything in so it doesn't feel too crammed. One thing that I absolutely love in the bathroom here is this table. So all of this wood actually came out of the wall that we had ripped down to enlarge the bedroom, and our carpenter was able to make this into a vanity. I found a picture online that I adored, and he was able to replicate it for us. So it's very special to know that this was the wood that was original to the home, and I think it turned out beautifully. We have stone sinks that we got, I believe we found them online, but I think they're from India. And I love all the different textures and sort of keeping it a little bit monotone. And all of the tile on the floor and in the shower is Moroccan tile.
My favorite room in the house is the potting shed. I love to start things from seeds and watch them grow over time. And so I like to spend a lot of time in there, especially at night. When the light is right coming off of the siding, it's just the perfect vibe.
I would say my favorite space in our home was our dining room, which we have now converted into sort of an art studio and office. It's a really beautiful room, and I love everything that we've added in there, and I found that we use it a lot more now as an office than we do traditionally as a dining room. And our kids love to sit in there and paint and color, and it feels like a very creative, sort of bohemian, whimsical space.
Welcome to the guest house. We also have a guest star, our youngest, Bond, who was born in a car, as we told you earlier. Please come on in. Welcome to the guest house. This has proved to be a really nice place to put our parents. Since our inside, we really don't have a good guest space. So when we first bought the main house, we were kind of just cramming everybody in as we had guests, and we made it a priority that we wanted to tackle this. And this room right here was the structure. You can see these beams that we had going into the island. This was the outside wall. The coolest thing to me about this house is you can actually see the char marks from a fire on the original structure in here. which is cool. We read in one of the books that there was a fire on the property and they actually were able to save all the structure. So this is just evidence that that actually did happen. And I think that's just really neat to see that there's evidence of a fire from hundreds of years ago in the house. The beams in this main space, we did have to lift them up. They were down about right here, and to make the space look bigger, we decided that raising the beams a good 18 inches or so would make the room look a little more grand. And these beams are actually from a church downtown Fredericksburg because the existing beams were in bad shape, so we had to relocate some beams. But our contractor was able to find some beams from an old church, and I think they match very well.
As Joel had mentioned, when we purchased the house, this space particularly was it was difficult to work with. So to make the space feel more open, we decided to blow through the ceiling, open that up. There are tiny little windows up there that allow a lot more light in. And there was a wall right through here, so when we opened that up and we found these beams, we knew that we needed to make them sort of a focal point in the kitchen. And we blew through, there was a doorway here, blew through the doorway and the wall to open this up and then fit in a simple kitchen. We have about 2 people that stay in here at a time, so they're able to move around here easily, make breakfast. But I wanted it to feel really clean and open, but have some character to really match, the character of the property. And I decided to go very last minute with red cabinets. And I think at first Joel was a little taken aback by the red, but I felt that it could, really work well in the space. And then, we put some white marble on top, and we've really enjoyed it. We actually come over here a lot with friends and sit on the screened-in porch and have cocktails, and the kids like to swing on the swing behind the house here. And we wondered if we would really use the guest house, and we've spent a ton of time over here, and our guests really enjoy having a little bit of a private oasis away from the chaos of our home.
This is another beautiful piece that Mary Catherine painted, and I think it just fits here perfectly. It just shows how talented she is. And the one thing that I really wanted in this space was a screened-in porch. So we found a way to add a screened-in porch off the side. This was not here when we bought the property. So this screened-in porch was an addition, and we spend a ton of time out here. It gets a little buggy in the humid, deep months of the summer here, so we like to sit out here, pick crabs, have cocktails, listen to music. It's turned out to be a great space. All right, welcome to the potting shed. This is my favorite place on the property. This is where I start all my seeds for the summer. This is where I overwinter plants. We keep a lot of our citrus in here because it doesn't do well when temperatures drop in the fall. But favorite parts about this are the cedar walls. So all of this I did. This potting shed, which is attached to our chicken coop, was really worn down, dilapidated when we bought the property. There was a brick patio here that was fully overgrown. So this was a labor of love for like 6 months, putting a new roof on it, jacking the structure up. I found a bunch of antique windows to make the front wall, old windows for the back. And the coolest thing is this sink right here. It is a concrete sink, and there is no way that 4 men could even lift this. We had to jimmy rig a tractor pulley situation to get it in here. I built the stand for the sink from wood that came out of the house. So I think this is just a really cool feature. I spend a lot of time in here, mainly in the early spring months, just getting things ready to go with a cocktail, Van Morrison going. It's really my safe space in here. This is the chicken coop, which actually is attached to the potting shed, which I think is pretty cool. One thing I really wanted before we moved to the property, I've always wanted chickens just for their benefit, for the environment for one. We'd never throw away food scraps. Every food scrap goes to the chicken. We get an insane amount of eggs. We probably go through a dozen eggs a day with all the kids and myself and Mary Catherine. So we kind of fluctuate between like 12 to 30 chickens depending on how bad the fox problem is at the time, which is a whole nother story. But they used to free range the entire property, but we have such a bad fox problem, we were losing too many. So we decided to put up this fence. Since then, they've been pretty safe. But the breed we have right now are Isa Browns, and then we have one all-white rooster, which is really pretty. But the kids love to go in here, get the eggs every day. It's part of their chore list. Just love hearing chicken sounds in the background when I'm in the potting shed. It's a really just nice way to live.
What does home mean to me? I would say it is a space that is filled with all of my most favorite things and treasures and things I've collected and little pieces of art that our kids have made. And we do have 4 kids, and it's a very kind of wild and chaotic space, and home, I think, just feels like a place that's filled with love and special memories.
I would agree with that. Home to me is a place where there's always a kid screaming and just a place you never want to leave. I think when we get home from work on the weekends, we almost never leave the house. And I think a lot of people don't have that in a home, and I feel really special to have a home where I just honestly never want to leave.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're in Surrey, England, visiting the stunning farmhouse of interior designer Louise Jones. Louise, known for her transformative touch, took on the challenge of breathing new life into a 16th century red brick cottage. From uncovering original brick floors to restoring historic details, Louise has blended antique treasures with modern comfort. Her creative reconfiguration of spaces, like turning the dining room into a spacious kitchen, showcases her skill in preserving the farmhouse's charm while creating a home that's perfect for today. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Louise. Welcome to my home in Surrey. Can I show you around? My name's Louise Jones and my company's Fairfax Jones. I'm an interior designer based in London. We're on the Kent-Surrey border. It's a country cottage, approximately 500 years old. So in my own home, I've followed the architecture and the actual history of the property. So I've been very sympathetic to both those traits. Because of the age of this property, I decided to use antique furniture, antique textiles, antique materials such as tiles and metalwork, and go with the character of the property. Welcome to my kitchen. This is an old farmhouse type kitchen. Originally, when we bought the property, the kitchen was through this door here, and this room was actually a dining room. It had a cream carpet and was very sort of traditional English dining room. But we realised that we needed a bigger space. We also wanted to be open onto the garden because we've got a lovely view here through to the garden and lovely far-reaching views of the farmland. So we didn't want to be stuck back at that side of the house. We wanted to sort of see this and be able to walk in and out and dine outside or pop in and out as much as we liked. So we moved the kitchen. And in deciding how we wanted the kitchen, I thought in historic properties, in historic English properties, typically an old kitchen is a freestanding kitchen. You're not going to have a continuous run of units. It just didn't exist in those days. I already had a couple of old pieces, which luckily fitted. And in this instance, I had this old dresser base, which I decided to convert into the sink unit. So we put a marble top on it. We dropped this old butler's sink into it and a typical sort of English 3-hole basin mixer. And then we also got a dishwasher integrated into that, which is quite handy. A typical sort of farmhouse scrubbed table. It also had to be super practical in this room. We've got 3 dogs, we've got horses, and in the winter it's a nightmare because there's mud everywhere. So fortunately, when we bought the house and we lifted up this cream carpet, we discovered the original brick floors. So these floors are hundreds of years old and they go right away across through the ground floor. They needed a lot of scrubbing. They were filthy. So we were on our hands and knees for days, really, just scrubbing them, sort of Cinderella style, I suppose. But anyway, they've worked a treat and we're really pleased with those. But we carried on sort of collecting and finding different pieces that could be quite practical. Plate storage. I love old china, and I thought this is a lovely opportunity to display some really old pieces of porcelain. So some of these things, I mean, that's the sort of old-fashioned teacup, which is about 500 years old, but that's what they used to drink their tea out of. It wouldn't work for me. I'd probably have about 8 huge mugs of tea a day, but never mind. And there's just a nice, interesting collection. And also this splashback. These are really old Portuguese tiles. So these are about 400 years old. So Super Company sources lots of really old tiles. But this kind of design actually became the basis for a lot of rug designs in England hundreds of years ago. We put the old range in, which gets a lot of use. And then what was here when we first arrived, all these beams are original. So they're hundreds and hundreds of years old. And by the looks of things, they've been used in other properties in the past. So either they've come from a house that was demolished over 500 years ago, or they've come from old ships, because quite often old beams were reclaimed from ships and brought into properties and houses for construction. So when we arrived, this fireplace was already here, this big Inglenook fireplace. I just painted out the back in a slightly stronger colour because I thought this kind of khaki green works nicely with the copper pots. I thought that was quite a nice combination. And every day, as soon as, well, probably in about a month's time, so as soon as it goes below about 15, I start lighting fires, much to my boyfriend's dismay, because he has to chop all the wood. And yeah, we get through the wood I get through the wood in no time. And the other thing we did, just to get the feeling of an old house back, because when we came here, it didn't feel like an old house. You know, cream carpets, cream walls throughout. It was a bit bland. I don't like bland. I like houses with a lot of character, and I like houses that look like they've evolved over time rather than being designed on a mood board, you know, dropping fabrics on. We put some old sort of cast iron radiators in. The other thing we did, I like sort of shaped splashbacks like this. I think they look quite characterful. Next, I'd love to show you the pantry, so follow me. So welcome to the pantry. So this was the old kitchen, so much sort of more enclosed space than next door, which is another reason why we wanted to be out there. We had a lot more space to sort of spread out. And here, really, it's a practical pantry. It's full of food. Again, I like old Delft plates. So these are sort of, I think about 1600s. And I do sort of collect them, but I find those really attractive. And I bought this for my boyfriend for one of his birthdays. He likes his red wine. And then this I got in auction. I do buy quite a bit in auction because you get good value for money, I found. And it literally fit into this space by a matter of inches. So quite fortunate with that. This is like an old, I think it's a cabinet that they used to keep in coach houses for when horse and carriages used to go into these coach houses, and then they would keep all their kit. The riders would keep all their kit in one of these cabinets. But I thought it's quite nice because it's got sort of practical storage, but also you can sort of display something. So it's best of both worlds, really. And then that's another sort of boyfriend present, sort of the big wine containers. Over here, I've had these old Smeg fridges in so many properties. I don't know why, but I always go back to them. I find them quite attractive. And then at the windows, I just did a really simple ticking stripe from Chelsea Textiles. It's something and nothing really that, but it just works. And then this is quite a pretty little piece here. So this, again, it's quite practical. It's absolutely full of food and cereals and things. But this is an alpine cabinet. So all those Swiss and Austrian chalets in the old days, they would tend to have these kind of things. And again, I saw this in auction, and it's got nothing to do with England at all, but I just quite liked it. I found it really decorative, and I love the colours, and the scale's quite sweet too. This light fixture, I like arts and crafts. I think I've got a soft spot for the arts and crafts period. And this is kind of pewter and this lovely sort of amber pressed glass with this element light bulb. They work really well in these kind of period pieces. I got this in auction, but it's such a lovely shape and style. It's a sort of nice characterful piece in this area. Welcome to the sitting room. And this is Dodo Duddings. He's our rescue lurcher. He's getting on a bit now, but he's a good boy. Hopefully he'll behave himself. I'm pretty sure he will. So this, I would say, is pretty traditional English country cottage. You would know it's the sort of more formal room in a house in England because, believe it or not, they've tried to do sort of more decorative mouldings. That little bit of sort of shape that they've put onto that beam is trying to say that this is the most formal room in the house. Yeah, so we've only been here around about 3 years, but when I started to think about this room, I wanted it to feel as though it's sort of been here for almost forever, that the room's sort of evolved and developed over time, over the years. So some of the pieces are new, even though they're probably like 100 or 200 years old, but other things I brought with me from other places and houses. The sofas are the sort of typical Howard style that you'd see in an English drawing room. This one's in a sort of Claremont blue wool, and this sofa's over here is in a very soft pink linen. So with the colours, I did want to bring some pinks into here. I think pink's a sort of nice sort of English country cottage colour, all the flowers, the roses, peonies, whatever. So I did want to bring those floral colours into the scheme. So there's sort of the very soft blues, the sort of delphinium blue. Well, this is a sort of antique pink velvet. I like that sort of very soft colour palette for here. And we've sort of done a chalky pink wash on the walls. I think that paint was from Papers and Paints, which is a firm I use a lot. They're in Chelsea. This chair over here is from Kinkham Sofas, but again, it's sort of a classic English wing armchair, and it's in a Colfax and Fowler check, the Eton check, which I think's been around forever. And it's got a loose cover on it, which I thought was quite nice, quite relaxed. The rug as well is sort of old Isnick pattern in these soft pinks and taupe colours. Kind of reflects the garden as well, I think. This whole fire surround is original. The local blacksmith, we've got a blacksmith in the village, he made the hood for the fire, which is rather nice. And then over here, I've got this sort of pine chest with a lovely Amari lamp on it. This little chair is done in a Fortuny fabric. Fortuny is a Venetian company. They've been going for hundreds of years, and they will not allow anybody in their factory, anybody, they won't let anybody see how they make their fabrics ever. And it's a bit of a luxury, that fabric, I suppose. And then this is another sort of arts and crafts piece, which I quite like, this sort of little brass mirror. I've had this a long time. It's an oyster walnut cabinet on a stand. And then sort of English paintings. We're mad into our horses. We've got 2 down the road, and there's a lot of kind of horse art and horses in photo frames here. You can't get away from horses and dogs. I'm afraid. So if you don't like horses and dogs, you probably wouldn't like it very much. The other people who do really good paintings are Sybil Colfax and John Fowler is a separate entity to Colfax and Fowler. They've got a beautiful shop on Pimlico Road, and they have just gorgeous pieces. So they do paintings, ceramics, old chairs and tables. It's just beautifully put together, and they have lovely pictures. I also got this piece from them. It's sort of a Chinese piece, but I think this Chinese black and gold look, the chinoiserie look, goes really well in an English country interior. The other thing that's from Colfax actually is this little stool, which is really handy. You can just pick them up and put them wherever you want, and it's just a handy little side table. But they do these fun little decorative pieces that sort of slot in anywhere. This again is another Fortuny, this Italian fabric, which I love the colour of that. It's kind of eau de Nil colour. And then again, you're seeing it in the summer. In the winter, this house has to do different things. It has to stay warm. So we have these curtains backing onto doors and openings to keep out the drafts. And this is a nice heavy velvet that's from Watts of Westminster. Again, that's an old British company. It's been going hundreds of years. And then behind this door, I've just done this old sort of tweedy check, but again, it's got such heavy interlining because in the winter, the winds just whip across those fields and they're cold. So I didn't go straight into interior design. After university, I became an accountant. I worked for one of the big 5 at the time, accountancy firms. Didn't enjoy it one bit. Decided after day 1 I hated it. But I went to then train at the Inchbald School of Design, which is one of the big ones in London, and did a year's diploma. Really enjoyed that, and then joined one of the big interior design companies in London, and I stayed with them for quite a few years before sort of setting up on my own. And I've had my company now for just about 22 years. So I'll take you to the dining room. Follow me. So welcome to the dining room. This was more of a challenge, I think, this room. It's a bit lower and it's quite narrow. I had to sort of put my thinking hat on a bit. But typically with rooms that are a bit more challenging in terms of the dimension, it's better not to sort of chicken out. It's better to go a bit punchier with your colours, your finishes, and the whole kind of scheme that you're trying to do, just to go in a bit stronger. So that's what I did. So the colours on the walls are more intense. The curtain fabrics are heavier. There's a much heavier weave involved. And the overall feel is a bit stronger and more robust, I would say. For instance, the dining table. So this had to be quite a skinny refectory style table. It's about 400 years old. I got it in auction and I think I paid about £200 for it. So I was pretty chuffed with that. And it's such a great piece. It's not far from here. It didn't come from far from here. It weighs an absolute ton, as do most things in this house. So every time the guys had to offload things and bring things in, they weren't terribly happy, to put it mildly. But anyway, it's a great table. And the chairs, again, I've just done in this kind of lovely sort of natural tweed in a sort of nice green and red plaid check pattern. In dining rooms and kitchens, in terms of the art, I like to do still lifes. I think it sort of works. So we've got this sort of floral scene here. Paintings, I got this one from Julia Boston. She's in Fulham in London, and she has gorgeous paintings like this and on much bigger scale as well. But yeah, this is quite a small scale for her, but quite a nice piece. And then again, for dining room, and particularly if it's green and I've got these sort of tapestry curtains, I thought let's get some authentic, sort of genuine tapestry in here. So that's a Flemish tapestry that's about 1605 in quite a spectacular frame, I think. I've set the table for dinner this evening, but I use all sorts of things really. I love Richard Ginori for plates. They're quite rich and quite decorative. And there's a slight mismatch going on, but yeah, that's his. And then I got these, I think I got these even from eBay, but they're really heavy lead crystal gilt glasses. And I love all this at Christmas time. This room's great at Christmas because I really set the table and go to town with it, and we have a little tree in the corner. These are quite interesting. Again, like I said before, I love the chinoiserie decoration in English country interiors. I think it works great. This black, gold and green is sort of goes really well. But these were in China, were how they transported their lunch around. But they make, I don't use them for that, but they just make nice decorative pieces. And then carrying on with the heavier, thicker textures, I've got this needlepoint fabric on this little chair. This is Watts of Westminster as well. This pattern's been going around forever. And then again, these lovely big sort of oversized Imari pots, I think work quite nicely in here. I have looked at the history of this house, and I've started to do some digging, but I need to dig a bit deeper, or maybe ask somebody who's a bit more used to investigating period properties like this. All I know was that it was 3 separate little cottages. So there would have been different families in each cottage, and then at some point it was knocked into one. What we love about it is it's really remote. We don't have neighbours. We've got these beautiful 360-degree views, but because it is off the beaten path, not much has been written about it or photographed, or it doesn't come up in many sort of historical documents like other houses. It might be on a road or a lane, people would stop and paint it or something, but not with this one. So I need to do a bit more work on it. So we've just got this kind of little nook, this little niche. And I had this old chest for a long time. It used to be at the bottom of one of the beds in a different place. But here I just thought it sort of sets itself up quite well for a bar, quite useful for the dining table. And because it's quite a dark little niche, I thought a nice old mirror would work quite nicely there. And again, I'm using my chinoiserie. I obviously like it. So now I'll take you upstairs to show you the rest of the home. So welcome to the bathroom. This is our bathroom. When we bought the house, it was actually 3 rooms, and it's the only room that we completely reworked, I suppose. The bathroom was this small space here. The entire bathroom was actually fitted into that, believe it or not. And then the door was in a different position. They had a sort of a little bedroom here, and then there was a ceiling with this sort of ladder going up, and I don't know what they expected you to do up there, but anyway. So we knocked it all out. We've got these lovely rafters going right up. Maybe it's about 15, 16 feet going up there. And just to emphasize that height, I found these old, they're actually Italian, these banners. I don't know where they would have come from. Of flowers in vases, but I thought they were quite pretty up there. And then I had this mirror that used to be over a fireplace, but we just bolted it onto those beams. And then again, I had this old dresser that used to be in a dining room, but when it comes to bathrooms, I like them to be really original, full of character. Again, I don't like the whole fitted out, everything's like a suite. And I wanted it to feel like a room of the house. So I took this piece of furniture and we had it converted into a vanity. I think the taps are from Water Monopoly, and got this nice old green marble there. And I always find shelves on the top like this quite handy. And then we've got this old trunk down in the corner. This lady, I find her quite sweet, really, how she's looking down on you in the bath. And yeah, we've just got the best view ever, I think, from the bath. It's just right over the garden and over the fields beyond. And I put the pattern on the walls because once I thought I do want it to feel cozy, and I love this sort of floral pattern. It's interesting, it's decorative. We did have to put this step in because the bath is cast iron, it's so heavy, and we were just concerned that the house wouldn't take it. So at the last minute, we had to sort of get a steel beam underneath here, and then they clad it in timber. The wallpaper's from GP&J Baker. Again, it's a chinoiserie design, but the colours aren't sort of typical chinoiserie, I would say. It's sort of this egg yolk colour and delft blue, so it's quite unusual, but it just gives a really cosy feel in summer and in winter, which is rather nice. And the other thing I think is quite nice is having sort of more decorative light fittings rather than your typical bathroom light fittings. These are old pewter wall lights from a company called Hilary Batstone, based in London, in Pimlico. And then this old light fitting, I got that in auction actually, but it's quite nice for this little space. And then we did sort of go a bit more modern with the shower. Well, I say more modern, but you know, it's got the glass screen, but a nice big open shower. We've got super views down the fields beyond over there, and a really good rain dome. So the bathtub is from Aston Matthews. They're a sort of North London sanitary ware supplier. I don't really like really big baths where you feel you can't sort of hold yourself in. So it's quite a neat size. And then this little table is like a decoupage table, just a sweet thing, but it's pretty handy. And that's from Robert Kime. And the little tiered table is from Sybil Colfax and John Fowler. Again, really useful. So let's head to the primary bedroom. So welcome to the primary bedroom. This room was really special from the first moment we viewed the house, and the reason being was the ceiling, because yes, the house is over 500 years old, and this ceiling is from that time. So it's a Tudor hand-painted ceiling, and it's got sort of carnations, dog roses, daisies, and then these sort of running motifs. And then on the ceiling, there's sort of abstract cloud designs. So it's pretty special. And a lady came and wrote about it and said there's only, I think, a handful of them in the country. So it's pretty unique. And we were amazed when we first saw it. We weren't expecting to see this at all. And they've also managed to do, you can just about still see it, but on these beams and rafters on the side, there are some hand-drawn sort of decoration. So at one point, it was all whitewashed over, and it was discovered again in the 1990s. They came to do some repairs or to do redecoration, and somebody said, hang on a minute, you've got something behind here. And they discovered this, and so they paid this restorer to come and do a whole number on it and brought it back as much as they could. Yeah, so that was sort of the starting point for what we did in the room. And again, I wanted to have this historical feel. Like most of the other rooms in the house when we moved in, it was all whitewashed. It had the white carpets throughout, everything. And again, when we ripped up the carpets, we discovered the original Tudor floorboards. So they're they're so wide, the original nail holes, this beautiful old oak, 500 or so, we don't really know, I suppose, but years old. They're absolutely all over the place. I mean, you're walking up and down, uphill, downhill, and to such an extent, actually, that this piece of furniture, the floors are sloping like this. So when we put this in, it was about to topple over. So the guy said, well, let's just chop off the back legs to straighten it out. But that's what you have to do. You can't sort of say, well, let's flatten the floor. That's the house. You just have to work with it. So quite often you'll put a glass here and then it just slides off, but you get used to it. This was my parents' piece, actually, and it needs a bit of restoration, but that was one of my mother's favourite pieces that's ended up here. That's one of her chairs. The Fortuny fabric again. I quite like this sort of casual, ruffle-headed sort of flop over. I don't think there's a name for that design, but it's quite pretty. Again, a ticking stripe on a chair. It's really casual, but I think ticking stripes can go anywhere really. And then I thought let's do a bit of a number with the bed because we've got all this height rather than just a regular headboard. And I've never really had a bed like this before with the sort of big pelmet. But I bought this pelmet in auction probably about 18 years ago and I'd never used it. And it was always in the garage, it wrapped in bubble wrap, just going from house to house with me. Anyway, so when I came here, I thought, oh, hang on, we can use this now. So finally it came out of the bubble wrap and it got hung up here. I found this came up in auction at Druitt's, which is in Oxfordshire. And it's the original hand embroidered crewel work from the 1600s. So this was a bit of an expensive purchase, but I thought it's worth it because it really feels like part of this house, I suppose. It was in pieces, so my curtain maker, Tilly, had a bit of a nightmare with it, trying to get it to work. But I love it, I think it's great. And we just lined it out in a really inexpensive mossy green linen. I like these little reading lights. They keep the bedside table clutter-free, so you can just pile up all your rubbish, I suppose, but they work. This piece, like I said, we took about that much off the back legs to get it to lie straight. When it came, it was all timber, but it was a dark corner, this, in fact, and I said, let's put a mirror in it, just to give it a bit more sparkle, a bit more life, but also when I'm in bed, I get more of a reflection, so that's quite nice. And then, again, this is quite nice. Again, just having a bit of reflection. It just adds to the, I don't know, the depth and breadth of the room. This is another piece that weighed an absolute ton and they struggled to get it upstairs. When we first moved in, we were sort of camping on the floor over there. It was freezing. And we thought, let's light the fire, which is a really bad idea because we almost died from smoke inhalation, to be perfectly honest. So we had to have all the chimneys relined and tested and all the rest of it. So this is now just for ornamentation. But yeah, I don't think that's ever going to leave. And then I like these kind of chest on stand pieces. I think they're slightly more unusual. So that's quite a nice piece for that spot, I thought. And this is the original old back of the house. So they added an extra bit on at some point, but they kept these old timber frames and I just use it as a bookcase now. And then I inherited this again from my parents. It's a Gillows piece. Gillows were in Lancaster in England, and which is where I'm from, my parents are from. So I keep a hold of it. So even though it's quite sort of zhuzhy, sort of quite Frenchy piece and all gilt, I still keep a hold of it for sentimental purposes. And the carpet is the reds and blues really of this, the mural that you see up there. I thought I'd use those colours in the carpet. The portraits, they're not my aunts, uncles, ancestors, they're really not. But I just thought it'd be quite good fun to do this kind of thing in here. I'm trying to find portraits of people that aren't really ugly. No, but, sorry, I shouldn't say. But when you go through auction catalogues, you see some pretty scary individuals in these sort of pictures. And I thought she's quite sweet. And again, I love the reds and the blues. She's French, but she still works here. This is the oldest one, of course. Again, he doesn't scare me to death when I'm lying in bed. But he's Tudor. And then it looks a little bit like my boyfriend, so maybe he's like a long lost ancestor, I don't know. My boyfriend doesn't have a powdery wig like that. But again, the reds and the blues, and he's not too terrifying. So now I'll take you to another bathroom downstairs. Welcome to the downstairs bathroom. There's this small corridor space in between. This is the old back of the house here. It's got the stone clad on the walls and it's got that little window that we saw upstairs that's in the bedroom. And then this is sort of an extension that they put on before my time. But the corridor was sort of pretty bland. There's nothing happening here when we moved in. It was just white with a cream carpet. So I quite like this sort of trellis design, which we wallpapered onto the walls. And again, some more of my delft plates. This is a William de Morgan vase. I love this. This is one of my favourite pieces. Again, it's an arts and crafts ceramic piece, bit oversized, but again, I like it for that. And then into the bathroom, again, I've done in arts and crafts style. This is a Voisey, was the designer in those days, and he designed not many wallpapers, probably about 10 wallpapers, and this is one of them. It's very country, sort of swans and deer and the doves. More delft plates. The blue and white delft will go anywhere. And some little etchings on the wall. And this sort of star design on the floor, so it's pretty decorative for a small space, but I like that kind of thing. The old brick tiles again, which are great. These pastels, my mother did those actually, so put her art next to the loo. So let's have a look at the garden. Garden and the setting were probably the prime reason we purchased the property. But I say the garden, the actual land, there wasn't a garden when we arrived. So we put in everything you see really. So I thought it would be quite nice to have this sort of symmetrical layout centred on the front door. So as we come in and out, we have this really pleasing, lovely view straight down to this circular herbaceous border. And the urn on the pedestal at the end, I bought in an auction. And there's loads of symmetry here. There isn't much in the house at all, but there is in the garden. You know, the nice pots and these stone balls. And then left and right, we put in these circular flower beds. We laid the terrace and I put in lots. I had lots of pots originally. I love gardening. If I didn't do what I did, I would be a gardener. English country sort of cottage garden flowers, I would say. And we also put in the hedge because there is actually a public footpath on the other side of the hedge. So we put this in. So that's in its early stages, I suppose. We've put that in for privacy, but it has to be said there's not many people walking up and down. It's pretty peaceful. But lovely, lovely views, winter and summer, and sunsets and gorgeous skies, day and night. It's really pleasant. So this for us is our summer sitting room. It's a summer sitting room and a summer dining room. Yeah, we eat here, we barbecue here, and we have friends over and we'll just sit there well into the evening. It's a really pleasant place to sit, really, very, very peaceful. So when we did first come to see the house, all we saw was lawn and the house. It was the winter, so there was nothing floral, there was no green leaves. It was pretty bleak. But I loved this space and I could see a lot of potential. It's very, very peaceful. The house itself had, all the windows were dark brown. They were painted really dark brown. So it was so drab, and it looked really like quite a sad house, really. But obviously, it's just the change of paint colour makes all the difference, and a lot of flowers and plants. So now it's this soft, pretty house, which is great. Hello. Come here. Come on, Albert. He's our new addition. He's brand new. He's enjoying life now. He's been in kennels all his life as a racer, and finally he's got a garden to play in, and he's molting. So at the back of the house, we've kept things more natural and a bit wilder. We have planted a lot of wildflowers, which has been a bit of a success, and maybe not. But there's an orchard here, and we're trying to develop that and enlarge it a bit. And the other thing we did out here, like I said, we've got these lovely views all the way round. We just removed some of the smaller trees here just to get more of a view. And it's a lovely place to sit. When it gets really hot, it just stays quite cool here. We get this lovely breeze. And just to sit and look over the fields, it's rather nice. And then, yes, we put this urn in over here, and that's actually the pet cemetery. But yeah, it's just sort of the end focus of the garden. So let's have a little look inside the shepherd's hut. This is overflow accommodation. Every so often we do need to sort of put somebody up in here. Hopefully it's during one of the summer months, but it's quite handy and it looks quite pretty in the garden. And I gave it this sort of racing theme. So we've got a horse racing blanket on the bed, this sort of leather work on the cushion, and then all the famous English and Irish race horses. So there's Red Rum, Arkle, Desert Orchid, all the big ones, Frankel. Yeah, I just got them sort of printed off and framed and gave it that sort of theme. But this is an old original shepherd's hut. It's probably about 1920s. The poor person hasn't just got a candle and a torch. They have got electricity. They've got, and we can put a heater in here. So yes, every mod con.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Melissa Sanabria, and welcome to my home in Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Melissa Sanabria, and welcome to my row home in Washington, D.C., and I can't wait to show you around. I have lived in this home for about 12 years, and I live here with my husband, Alberto, our daughter, our dog, who's a little crazy, and my mom. So it's a full house. I live in Capitol Hill, and what a lot of people don't know is Capitol Hill is actually the largest neighborhood in DC. It's very residential here. It's a lot of row homes. So when I first started to visit the Hill, I felt it reminded me a lot of Europe, and just that really appealed to me. We live in the historic district, and a lot of these homes were built around the late 1800s. So that's pretty common here for the architecture. It's a lot of Victorian row homes that were popular at the time. And it's very family friendly, lots of families, lots of kids, lots of dogs. And it's a little sleepy at night, but we really love that. And then we have, you know, great proximity to the mall and the Capitol and all the museums. So it feels like a little village in the city is how a lot of people describe it. You kind of can't walk down the street without seeing a neighbor and running into family and friends. That's what we really love about it here. So this is the living room. You walk into the house and kind of step right into the living room, which is pretty typical in these row homes. In my home, as I mentioned, this home actually was a flip. And so many years ago, they did take out all the walls, which is kind of sad. So you see the way that the house is laid out, which is pretty typical, and you can see right from the front all the way through to the back. So you come into the living area, and then we have the dining room, and then the kitchen is in the back of the home with access to the rear. When I renovated it, we were used to having it all be open, so we kept it that way. I kind of dreamed of putting some walls back in, but just the reality was the way we live, this did work for our family, so I left it that way and focused on putting in other details to try to make it feel special. So here in the living room, when you come in, the focal point of the living room is the fireplace. When we bought the house, this fireplace did not look this way. So they tore it out, you know, it doesn't function. You know, we didn't invest in making it operable again, but what we did was we did invest in a vintage mantle, and we sourced this with a company called Mantle House here in DC. It's another woman-owned business that we love. And this mantle is the same period as the house. So it's like late 1800s. This house was built in 1865. So it feels like this is, you know, the goal was to make it feel like this belongs here. And this is a piece you might have actually found in this home had it not been kind of torn apart many years ago. So kind of part of putting back that charm was adding the beautiful vintage mantle here. And I really wanted this to be a focal point in the space. One of the other things we did here was added these built-in bookshelves flanking the fireplace. So here, I designed these in partnership with Jewett Farms. They make incredible cabinetry. They're based up in Maine. We have a lot of books, and a lot of people in DC have a lot of books. So it's pretty typical. What you'll see in especially DC row homes is like fireplace, built-ins for all of our stuff and all of our books. So down here, in the bottom, this gives us additional space for storage. We did walnut here with like this pretty curve on, I don't know if you can see like this curved detail on this closed cabinet at the base. We designed this to mimic the curve in the fireplace as well. So we just kind of like repeated this soft curve here. So they kind of speak to each other. Even though this is a little more modern and feels a little updated, it just kind of speaks to that bit of architecture. So we did all of this in walnut, and then we wanted to bring in some color, so I did the surround in green. This is Turtle Green by Benjamin Moore. I love this color. So these are some of my favorite pieces in the space, and again, they just give us lots of storage, super functional. I have all my daughter's like art supplies and all that stuff in here too, which is great. Yeah, this side, same situation. We don't have our TV on this side, so you might have noticed over here we have our frame TV. So it's not quite the focal point in the room, but this is where we sit and hang out and watch TV. This side is more just book storage, and again, additional storage below. These bookshelves, I feel like they're so beautiful, and then I realized, oh, now I have to style them, which styling bookshelves like is an art form and really it's very time consuming. So if you're challenged with doing it, like there's a good reason, because it can be really challenging. So I'll talk a little bit about what we have here and then how we styled it. So a lot of the books that you see, it's a total mix of my books and my husband's books that we've been lugging around with us for years. They're very meaningful to us. We both, my husband still like works in finance, and we both are economics nerds. So a lot of what you see on here, there's a lot of econ books, which is kind of funny and unexpected. One of these books that I wrote, this is my first publication. It's very interesting. If you're looking for a good read to fall asleep to, this is a book I wrote many, many years ago. So that's on the shelves. And then the way that we approached it, because we have so much stuff and so many books, but we also have some fun little objects. What I really like when I'm styling bookshelves is like I want them to feel full, and you want your eye to move around. And I like to have little surprises in here. So we have some fun little things, like we have this little Albert Einstein action figure, which I got when I lived in Princeton, New Jersey. I was living there when I was working in New York many years ago, and I love him, and he's just kind of weird. And then some other little, just like special bits of like ceramics. These are just some pretty brass, like vintage bookends that I have had for many years. And then actually like working hard to make this feel like really kind of organic. So I focus a lot like on the shapes and the colors to make sure, again, that your eye is moving around the bookshelves and not kind of getting stuck in one spot. So my husband, it drives him nuts that these aren't actually categorized by topic, because that's what he would like. But really it's aesthetic and just kind of making sure like there's variety and height, and then like some objects throughout. Storage is the name of the game here in these houses. We don't have any closets. So that's like a pretty way for us to include that on this floor. So in the bay window, this is a space actually, this is a very common feature, especially in these Victorian row homes, which are super common here in DC. A lot of people don't know what to do with this bay window because it's sort of like off your main living area and it's a little bit awkward. What we use it for is, this is like, I call it my daughter's command center. So she really spends the most time here. This is where like she likes to draw and journal, and like she'll sit and have a snack after school. So like, you know, my neighbor who could see her next door, she always called it her command center because she could see her from the windows, like say hi to the neighbors. So this is really her spot. It's also the spot where my dog, it's also when my daughter's not home, it's our dog's command center. So she likes to, you know, just like prop up and like look out the window. Sometimes for me too, I'll sit, like if I'm working from home, I do take calls from here. It's nice and sunny. So most of the stuff that I have especially on this main floor, is vintage. So these chairs I got from First Dibs and then reupholstered them in fabric that I actually had left over from a little custom lampshade that's in the kitchen. So we had extra fabric, and so that went on these guys. I bought these two as a pair. And then this little table in the center, this guy I bought at our local flea market over at Eastern Market, right here in the neighborhood. And it was from an estate sale. It was like a super good deal. So this is from the flea. And then these are just really inexpensive First Dibs finds that we recovered. So my path to interior design is not a traditional route. So I was working in financial services. I was an economist by trade and by education. So I did that for about 15 years. And I was just reaching a point in my career where I was really just looking for something else that's more fulfilling. And I guess it was a long time coming. Design and interiors were something that I always really valued and were really important to me. And friends would ask me like, oh, where did you get this? And where did you find this piece? And I always loved shopping for vintage. And so I started a blog and I just started to share all of that information since I would get those questions a lot. And I was like, maybe this is something people would find interesting. So I kind of started that way. I worked with a leadership coach who helped me with visioning and kind of figuring out my path. So I made the move gradually, and when I kind of started to feel like I had some traction with my blog and I just started taking some small projects on, I did some renovations on my own, and I was really trying to learn on my own dime, kind of making mistakes on my own house. And I started to get some traction, and I felt like there was enough there that I was ready to make a change. In the meantime as well, I had my daughter, so that just gave me a lot of perspective, and I realized that I wanted to also be more of a part of my local community. In my job previously, I traveled all the time. And so I just felt this like longing to be more part of my community, be home more for my daughter. And I thought, if I'm working so hard, like I want to be doing something that I feel really proud of. So I decided to, after getting some traction, resigning from my job. I was working as a consultant, resigned from that job, and just started to take on projects, and it kind of grew from there. And always kind of going into it with the intention of, I knew I wanted to work with a team. I wanted to have create a work culture for women. That was also important to me. I came from a male-dominated field, so kind of had this vision for what kind of business I wanted to run, and just wanting to really serve my community, and design was the way I wanted to do that. So in the living room, the color palette that I have out here, a lot of it, honestly, it's like what I just tend to naturally gravitate toward and what I find I'm really liking. With this sofa, we actually installed a similar color sofa on a project not too long ago, and I just became obsessed with it and fell in love with it. And so I got one for myself, and I thought it was perfect for this space. And I also used, on the floor here, I have this vintage rug that I've had for years, and it has beautiful blues and browns and taupey colors in it. And so that is also a jumping off point. I love that I can just pull different colors from that and then use that to kind of pull them through the room. It's a little challenging when these homes, when you have no walls and everything has to work together. And so just always keeping that in mind and making sure everything really speaks to each other was important. So you'll kind of see some of these things also repeated in the kitchen and the dining room as we move through the spaces. But I like to keep the walls just kind of fresh and feeling simple, because I tend to gravitate toward dark woods and some of these warmer colors. So by keeping the walls more neutral, when I'm selecting fabrics and accessories, that's where I'm going to gravitate toward color and pattern. And so having a more neutral backdrop, knowing that that's kind of where I'm going to lean as I'm sourcing furniture, allows me to keep that balance so it doesn't all feel too heavy, and the walls feel a little bit lighter. And then I bring in velvets and some warmer tones and stuff in the furniture pieces. So in terms of some of the furniture and what I have in here, as I mentioned, a lot of it is vintage and just things I've collected over the years, which I find, when I just truly love a piece, it feels timeless and it doesn't go out of style. So, even I have this Nelson bubble lamp. This is classic, mid-century. I love it. I've had it for so many years. It's probably, it's vintage now, but I bought it new. but I've had it for such a long time and it just continues to serve me and I love it. I love the glow. I think it's perfect. I have this same, like this coffee table that I have here, super functional. This is a vintage piece I've had for years. It has little drawers. We can stash like our playing cards and little notebooks and pens, pencils, coasters, all stash in there. So this just, again, like continues to work for us, like no need to get something new. Other pieces in here I have this chair. This is also vintage. This one I sourced on First Dibs. Some of the other pieces, like I don't even remember where I got this coffee table. I've had it for so long, but this was a First Dibs piece. I had it recovered in this beautiful, this is a Zac and Fox, like kind of an eggplant velvet that I'm obsessed with. My dog immediately started to chew on this chair because she loves it. So you might see that, but this is one of my favorite pieces in the room too. Super loungy and casual. I've lived in this home for about 12 years. When we initially bought it, my husband and I had just gotten married and this house had been flipped a few years before. So it did not have a lot of charm. It was not really particularly special on the interior, but the location was amazing. And it also had an English basement apartment that we could rent and help supplement our mortgage. And so that was really important to us. And that was a way that we could get into this neighborhood. So I kind of knew going in like, okay, we can just make this work. You know, we can improve upon what is inside the house, but like the location we can't change, and that's amazing. And that's what we're really paying for. And then we had this basement we could rent. So initially when we moved in, we didn't have to do too much because it functioned fine, but it definitely evolved over time. So we started with just some aesthetic updates to the home, and we lived with it for a while. And then back in 2021, like it was like right on the edge of the pandemic, we finally pulled the trigger and we did a complete whole home gut renovation. And at that point, we were able to connect our English basement so we could gain use of that space, and then really just take the whole house down to the studs and improve all of the unsexy stuff. So like we updated all of our systems and electrical and all of that, you know, not fun stuff. But then we also had the opportunity in putting it back together to put some of the charm back into the house, which was always my goal was, you know, we can add the charm back in. And that was what I wanted to do with that large renovation. So that, you know, we moved out. That took about a good year for the construction. And then since then, and you know, now a couple of years later, I'm still finally finishing up like all of the final like finishing touches and layers. So there's still some projects to do. I mean, I'm always like designing and also sometimes it's hard when I do it all day, like when I come home on, you know, on the weekends to like be focused on my house, sometimes I just run out of energy, but I'm getting there. So it's kind of a never-ending project. But yeah, so that's where we are now, is just like finally wrapping up the furnishing and the decorating and just putting that final layer into the home. So now we'll go into the dining room, which is just a few feet away. Here in our dining room, you know, it really is kind of a pass-through space, we call it, which is very common in row homes here in DC. So I tried to make sure that it's grounded and has its own purpose and feels like its own space. And so a few ways that we do that are by having, you know, a rug, making sure you have a light fixture centered over your table. It usually means it's not centered in the room. That's important. We see that a lot, that mistake. So, you know, making sure your fixture is centered over your table. And then here we also went for a large scale piece of art, which helps this area feel even more grounded. This particular piece, my husband and I both really loved. It's a Zan Padron. He's a photographer. And he does these amazing works where he sets up a camera and just like takes photos in one point in different cities around the world. This one's in Chelsea in New York. I love the light blue background of the wall here. And we love like all these people in the picture. Sometimes when we sit here at the table, we like make up like little stories and, you know, we talk about like, what's this person doing? And like, you know, just kind of get into the detail of it, which is really fun. This dining table is a vintage dining table I've had for many years. It's a Paul Macab table, mid-century. It has It's mahogany with this like beautiful little brass band around it, which I love. It has like, I think I have 7 leaves for this table, which I have never used all 7 of them, but it is really nice because something we have to do often here is, you know, for our everyday living, I don't need all those leaves in the table, but when we host, super easy, like expand it. We have space, we can open it up, and then we can host a lot more people. But our everyday lives, like we don't need that much space, so we keep it a little smaller. We do use this table like all the time. I feel like in these homes, for what, you know, when you think about like price per square foot and what you're paying here in the city, like I am a big believer in like we need to use all of our space. So this table is, we have dinner here, my daughter does homework here. This is really, you know, super functional for us. We spend a ton of time here. The chairs, also vintage, had them recovered in this Zach and Fox fabric that I love very much. So over on this side of the dining room, you kind of notice a theme. I have another vintage little cabinet here. This guy actually, this is where all of internet and modem and all of like those wires come into the house. So I needed a solution to hide them. So I got this little, it was an old Swedish record player that we took out the inside, and all of that stuff lives here. So that's what this guy's job is. And then this rubber tree plant I rescued from a client where it was not doing so great. So she let me take it, and I've been nursing it back to health, and it loves this window, so it's doing great. I keep my stack of magazines here. So like this is my like ritual on the weekend. I have like my stack of all my design magazines, and I like to sit here at the dining table and I just like go through them and you like methodically like read them cover to cover, like in the morning before like everybody's up and all the like activities have commenced. So this area serves as a little bit of our transition from like dining to kitchen. It also gives us a little bit of a drop zone because where you walk into our front door, it's pretty tight. We don't have a ton of space. So this little cabinet serves as storage. Like this is where we'll put mail, you know, stuff like that when it comes in. And then again, just this cabinet storage, like you have to get so creative with storage. So like finding cabinets and pieces of furniture for storage has been super critical. This is a piece I sourced from Cherish, and I love it. It has this like pretty like tonal checkerboard type pattern and this like cute little hardware that I love. And then we just have one of our extra dining chairs, which you'll see its partner over in the kitchen too. But like that guy just hangs out here and gets a ton of use. You know, my daughter puts her shoes on in the morning, heads out the door. Like this is like a super functional little, it doesn't look like much, but it's kind of like a workhorse of a space for us, like as part of our routine. This is where everything kind of lands. We say it's historic homes for modern families. And, you know, of course we love to do all kinds of houses, but our like real passion is focusing on historic properties and updating them in a way that works for modern living. I grew up in just outside Philadelphia in Bucks County, which if you're familiar with that area, it is very old. It's a lot of old like Revolutionary War era towns. And so that's where I grew up. So I grew up in old homes. I love old houses. I love creaky floors. I love wavy glass. Like those are just things I feel like they give me butterflies. They make me excited. And I also understand, you know, that sometimes those things need to be updated. And I feel like, you know, a lot of people do it wrong. And I've seen a lot of people do it wrong over the years. So I feel like really excited and passionate about making updates to these older homes in ways that honor the house, respect the architecture, they feel natural, but yet, you know, also understanding that in order for these homes to have longevity, they have to be updated in ways that make sense for how we live today. So I think the roots of it come from, you know, where I grew up and how I grew up, and then also just an extension of how I live. And I understand that, you know, I need modern amenities and families need modern amenities, and like, how do we make that work and how do we blend the two? Yeah, in terms of my team, I mean, the team I have is amazing. And I think it's really important to me that the folks on my team, like we share the same values and like we all feel passionate about the same things and in like kind of the same way. So our studio is based in the historic district in Capitol Hill, like we're right in it. And the rest of the team, you know, kind of has that shared value, which really helps. And they get excited about the same thing. So we can all like geek out over these like historic details and stuff like that we want to try to save, and then think about like, okay, how do we improve this? Like, how do we make this flow better? How do we improve upon what's here, but like always going back to honoring what exists and what's worth kind of highlighting and saving. Okay, so from here we can walk into the kitchen. This kitchen it's quite long, and this was a little bit of a challenge, and I thought a lot about how I wanted to design it. I do really like the function of a galley kitchen. I didn't feel the need to have an island. I really preferred a kitchen table. So you'll see in the back, we have a little built-in banquette and a little table and a chair. For our family, it works really well and it's perfect. So that was something really important to me. I'm a kitchen table girl, so I opted for that over trying to do an island situation in here. And also in the kitchen, you know, I wanted to bring that theme of like carrying that walnut through. So I decided to do these counter resting cabinets in walnut. I did both of them with glass. Part of the reason is when I host, I really like people to feel at home, and I want people to feel like you can help yourself. And so you can see where everything is. It's super easy. Like this end of the kitchen is kind of our bar area. All of the glasses are here. All of the alcohol is here. Like you can help yourself. The other end a little further down is like dishes, glassware. So people just feel it's real easy to just come in and like jump in or, you know, get yourself something. And having the counter resting cabinets is super helpful too, because again, for my daughter, I need her to be able to participate and, you know, set the table and put her stuff away. And so having the cabinets resting on the counter means like she can reach everything. She can find everything. So there's no like, I don't know where this goes situation. So, so that just makes it super easy, like, and for everyone to kind of be involved. And I love that. For countertop material, we decided to go for marble. This is Carrara marble, which is pretty ubiquitous and actually pretty affordable. There's some, you know, controversy around marble being durable, and that's usually folks' like #1 question. So I say it's a personal choice. I don't mind that this marble will patina, it will get some etching. That's okay with me. I am comfortable with that. I also am someone who constantly is cleaning, so that's just my personality. So like that, I'm comfortable doing that. If you're a low maintenance person and if every little ding or little mark is gonna bother you, then I say maybe marble's not for you. But for us, it felt like the right choice. I love the natural beauty that marble offers. So we decided to go for marble for the countertop and then also for the backsplash, just to keep this side of the room really simple. And what we actually did with this backsplash, and I don't know if you can tell, but you know, because we have these counter resting cabinets, I didn't want to have any depth to the backsplash. So we actually have made it flush with the wall. So this took a little bit of engineering from the team to cut out the wall and make sure when we returned this marble up that it sits perfectly flush. And then that allows me to have these counter resting cabinets just sit perfectly flush and be secured to the wall as well. And something else in this area while I'm over here that we did with the countertop and this window is we extended, we made the window counter height, so we were able to extend the countertop and give a little extra depth here. I love to have flowers and plants, so this is just a spot where I have a little bit more space to like have fresh flowers or, you know, just be able to spread out a little bit. And so extending that countertop kind of that became the windowsill, and that gave us an opportunity to do that here. And then we also pulled, because this is such a long run of cabinets on this side of the kitchen, we pulled the sink cabinet a little bit forward and we just did a little detail here with the stone, like a nice little curve, and then just to create a little additional depth and interest, we have the sink cabinet pulled a little bit forward. So then right down the middle of the room, we have this beautiful vintage runner. This runner I've had for many, many years. We have a lot of vintage rugs and we source a lot of vintage rugs on our projects. This particular one, honestly, I've had it for so long, I don't remember where this one came from, but for a lot of the rugs you see in the house and for a lot of our projects, we partner with a local vintage rug vendor called Passerine Home, and it's another women-owned business local to us. We have a great relationship with her because something she allows us to do is see the rugs in person before we pull the trigger, which is just a really nice added benefit and something too, like as designers, like that we kind of get that little bit of inside information because it's so hard to tell online what things look like. So over here, this is kind of a moment in the kitchen, and this really was something that I always had in my brain when I was designing this kitchen for such a long time, like dreaming. What I really wanted to use, and I don't remember where this obsession started, but I have always been a huge fan of Delft tiles, and specifically I love these Delft tiles in this sepia color, these are much more unusual. They're a little harder to source. Like usually Delft tiles you see, it's that blue and white, like that's like very the typical Delft. So for just such a long time I've been, so obsessed with these, and I wanted to use them somewhere. So this really was like kind of the start for me, like the jumping off point. And this also informs like what you see some of like throughout the house. I think that this color in this tile, like this purpley kind of brownish eggplanty color, you see in my living room, and it like just gives other, it shows up in small ways in other places, which is really fun. So yeah, so I just decided to keep it here. In this moment just behind the range, and then we did this custom paneled paneling around the hood, and here we repeated that turtle green color that you see out in the living room showing up in the built-ins. And there we had some reading detail, but here is like a little bit of a wider paneling, and this does feel a little bit more European, which is something I'm really drawn to. So, the combination of the Dutch Delft tiles and like kind of bringing in like this like hood moment and this paneling is like brings in a little bit more of that European feel. And then with bringing in these colors and the walnut is, why I went for something a little more neutral and taupey in all of the base cabinets, because I didn't want to compete, and I kind of wanted those to be the colors and the moments in the room. So then the base cabinets are just kind of like a nice neutral taupey color. So here in the kitchen, we managed to tuck in a little tiny powder room. It's really the only spot for it on the first floor. It's really small. What we did in here was just like a fun little pinstripe wallpaper, super simple, the tiniest of sinks with a pretty little brass waterworks faucet and fixture. And here, just keeping it really simple, but did like a mahogany paint on all of the trim and everything. Trying to dress it up, and it's like the smallest possible bathroom you can have. So now I'm gonna take you over to the breakfast nook, which was a really important space in the layout when I was designing the kitchen. It's, we don't have much room. We're a small family, so just having a small table, this little banquette seat in the corner with these windows kind of framing the space. And then we have an extra, this is one of our extra floater chairs. You saw its partner over in the dining room. And again, like this is a vintage chair that we had recovered, which we love to do. We get so much mileage out of this little corner of the house. It's really one of my favorite spots in the whole house. This is where we read the paper. We still have the paper from Sunday hanging out here. This is where we like have breakfast in the morning. All of like the morning activities happen here. So this is just like a super busy nook, and one of the sunniest little spots in the house actually is back here. So we really love it. And it was really important to me that the kitchen had a little seating and gathering place, because we all end up hanging out in the kitchen anyway. So just really wanted to make sure we could accommodate that. So this table, this is actually new, but it has a really kind of more classic and traditional look to it. It has a marble top, which is super durable and functional. It's held up really, really well. And then the banquette here in the corner, I had this made by my upholsterer. It has a back, which is super easy to make, and then the cushion seat. And then underneath this banquette, we have more storage as well. So if you lift up the cushion, we have, the top of the bench lifts up. We have doors like on piano hinges so that you have more storage underneath here. And then what I did was paired, the fabric from the bench matches the fabric in the chair. I don't always like everything to be too matchy-matchy, but in this instance, I thought it was a little like unexpected and that it worked well. And then it's a fun way to bring this pattern from the kitchen, out into the living room when these chairs kind of float as supplemental seating when we host. So it brings a little bit about that color and pattern out into the rest of the house as well. So this little sconce is one of my favorite lights in the whole house. So in the evening, I love when we have all the lights out, but I just have this particular light on because it gives such a lovely glow. This is a light from Urban Electric, and then I did this custom pleated shade. And what's fun fact, the fabric on this shade is actually the fabric on the front, the two little pair of chairs in our bay window. Again, like not wanting everything to feel too matchy, but having this fabric in a pleat, like it kind of disguises the pattern a little bit. So it's just kind of fun. The way it looks on the chairs feels very different, but yet like we're repeating the same like colors and pattern like throughout the house. And again, just trying to make that connection because it is all one space, even though it's in a small detail, but like bringing what's in the back of the house, like all the way through to the front, to make sure everything feels connected. So this is just like one little fun detail and way that I did that. Okay, so I have a couple of these little prints here in the kitchen. These it's like a fun little pair of prints that I got at Miss Pixie's here in DC, which is a great vintage shop over downtown. And I just bought these many years ago and they've like always followed me around. And so I found a little home for them here. So just like have this vintage pair hanging out in the kitchen. Okay, so now I'm gonna take you out back to our patio. One of the biggest selling points of this house, besides the location, was this back patio. So we have this, it's not very big, but our little slice of heaven back here in our patio, it's just big enough for us. And so we did renovate this space when we moved in, and we put in new cedar fencing. We did a built-in kitchen. And then I'm always kind of gardening and working on the garden, so like a container garden. So you kind of see that going on a little bit as well. So it's something fun that Bea and I like to do together. But something we love about the space is because what we have here, which is really rare in the city, is a lot of privacy. So we don't have neighbors close to us that can see over into our little, postage stamp lot here, which is really great. And when we entertain and host, like this is primarily where we're gathering. We love to grill. We love to have people over for dinner. The kids can play, whatever. And like this is where we're usually spending our time. Typically best time is fall and spring. Sometimes the summer is a little rough in DC, but we get a ton of use of it, a ton of use of the space, really most of the rest of the year. We'll grill out here in like January. So this is one of our favorite little spots. So one of the bigger investments that we did make out here in this space was adding a built-in kitchen area. So we have a built-in like grill, countertop, and then a place for the gas. And again, just a little bit more storage out here with such limited space, like going in this direction just helps us make the most of the little bit of space that we did have out here. Okay, so now we'll head up to my daughter's room upstairs so you can follow me up. This is my daughter Beatrice's room. It's very small, but again, pretty typical in these row homes. It's actually one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's so cozy. She gets great light and it really does have everything that she needs. So a few things in here to point out are one of her requirements. She's 9. Having a pink bed was a requirement she had. So we did this pink Jenny Lind style bed. This is new. Creighton Kids is a great resource for kids stuff. So we got that from there. She picked out this quilt on her own. She loves it. This quilt is from Schoolhouse. And then we have this quilt at the foot of the bed. This was made by a dear family friend of ours when she was born. So that's very special to us, and that like hangs out there. The canopy was also something she really wanted and she loves, and like adds to the cozy factor. So lots of cuddling and stuff happening in here, and it's like one of our favorite things in the evening, to sit and read and hang out in here. And one of my favorite features in the room is the wallpaper. This wallpaper is a replica of historic wallpaper from like the late 1800s. The theme is kind of, you know, when I'm selecting something historic, it's really nice to select something from the time period from when the house was built. I like to do that. I think it's a fun way to say, like, this is kind of what was in fashion at that time. So it's a reproduction of that. And we love the colors. My daughter loves it. Like, there's all these little like squirrels and birds. And again, just kind of like, you know, we talk about like the different little like birds and like what's happening in this paper. And she loves it. I would really like to do the whole room. She only let me do one wall. So we did this wall where it has the biggest impact. And then, you know, we just have like her basics, her books here, which we're kind of outgrowing this as she's getting older. And then we repeated the same kind of style in the furniture, but brought in some of that dark finish that we have downstairs in the wood, bringing that up into her room. So Beatrice loves movies and art and theater and performing. So some of the things that you see here, we saw Hamilton not too long ago. We have her Hamilton playbill. Last year, we took her on family vacation. We went to LA so she could go to the movie studios and really like experience what it feels like to be in a studio. And so that was like a really fun trip. So she has her little Warner Brothers thing. I forget what it's called. So that is from our trip. And also we're like super big into Harry Potter. So you see a lot of Harry Potter going on. And so that's like a big part of our lives. It's something we talk about a lot. And you don't see Taylor Swift represented here, but that's like another popular topic of conversation in the house at the moment. So we have like the same kind of leg detail. This is a custom vanity stool from Nikki Kehoe that we love, that works perfectly as her desk chair. Yeah, and then the nightstand kind of goes with all of that as well. So this is our hall bath. This is primarily my daughter's bathroom. So I really wanted it to reflect her. She picked out the wallpaper. So it's this cute little polka dot sandberg wallpaper. We did a little tile pattern on the floor, a custom vanity, and then again went for the marble countertops in this space and stuck with the brass fixtures as well. So I wanted it to feel girly and feminine, but I at the same time think that she'll be able to grow into this space. Even though it is polka dots, it still kind of has like a little bit of a sophisticated feel to it. And the pinks, not too pinks. I think, you know, my hope is that this is going to serve her for a long time. For me, home is a place first and foremost that everyone needs to feel safe, and you need to feel like it's a safe space where you can be yourself and you can really unwind and be your most vulnerable. And I think, you know, to do that, you want to make sure your environment brings you joy and is a place that isn't causing you stress. It should be peaceful and calm, and whatever that means to you as an individual, like however you thrive, you know. So first and foremost, that's what I think about is like home is a safe place. You know, a lot of our clients are super busy and they have really busy lives and big jobs, and home should be a place where they can come to and just really feel like it's where they can truly relax and be themselves. And that's something we're always holding. It's why all of our homes and spaces look a little bit, they all look different, and it's because they reflect the people who live there, so that, you know, their most personal space feels personal to them and just feels like a place they can really feel safe and relax. And for me, that's really important. And I want everyone in my home to feel like you're welcome to go get yourself something to drink, like put your feet up, like, make yourself at home. Like that's the kind of vibe in my house that I want to create. And so we try to, yeah, make sure that that's how everyone is like living their lives. Thank you so much, Homeworthy, for coming and taking a tour of my house today. Until next time, see you later. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.